TT is an Americana troubadour who's about to release his debut album, Man on a Corner. Diagnosed with a chronic kidney condition as a child, which eventually went into remission, TT was told in 2023 that it had returned and that he had a short life expectancy. He immediately went to work writing and recording the songs that became Man on a Corner. Fortunately, TT has miraculously been given a clean bill of health once more. So here he is to tell us about his music and his story.
Prosperity is an illusion.
I started writing music when I was about 10 years old. I actually started singing when I was 3. My mother was a stage and theatrical singer, and she had me singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which is actually a very hard song when I was young. So I think my journey really started then. But more recently, I started recording the album last year, and I had an unfortunate health incident in which I had a finite amount of time. And so I wanted to, make the best use of that. Now, thankfully, my situation has gone to remission, so I'm fine.
That's good to hear. Yes.
Thank you. And yet it took me on this path. And so all things happen for a reason.
Yep.
And as I was recording the album, there is a number of tracks and lyrics in other tracks that do make reference to sort of that finality of life and the very short duration that we're here. So I really try to emphasize writing about things that I think are meaningful or what others might find meaningful.
Right.
And I always feel like when you watch a film, you want to be taken somewhere. You might be taken somewhere to a different world, a different city, but you also might be taken somewhere emotionally. And so I think writing songs and also creating a full album is the same. You want to take the listener on a journey. And so that's a long way of explaining the culmination of bringing me to writing the album. I had a life event that took me into wanting to go back to my roots as being a musician and recording the record, but also being able to express those things that can take people on a journey. Hopefully they find meaning in it. They might even find a message, but importantly, obviously enjoyment, as well as having some sort of spiritual, emotional journey that they can experience.
Right. So I've listened to the album, and overall, most of the songs are fairly upbeat and kind of, dare I say, optimistic. But what was the vibe like in the studio when you were making this record?
Very much like that.
Was it? Okay, good.
There are 3 ballads on the album, and those ballads, one about when your kids grow up and leave, if you invest so much time. I have 2 little ones. And there's that point in time where they move away. And so there's that tug, which was obviously not as upbeat. And that's obviously a very simplified acoustic guitar, violin, vocal sort of track. A Moment Ago really is about the finality of life, and then Heal My Mind about losing someone. So those were the more ballad, more somber type of songs. But as you point out, the rest of them are more upbeat. And it's because I try to not only have a message, but there's oftentimes a strength behind it. So in My Kind of Cowgirl, for example, it's about a strong woman. My Confession is about the strength of a strong woman in a relationship. You Gotta Earn Me is about sticking up for yourself. It's about self-esteem. So those are very much like that. Let Us Breathe is about climate change. And so there's strength behind it, and a message behind it. But because it's a powerful type of topic, that does tend to have a little bit more edge to it as well.
Mm-hmm. So were the other musicians that you were working, I assume they knew what your mental state was when you were recording this. They must have been extremely supportive.
I have been blessed with some extraordinary talent that I've worked with in the past, as well as on this album. Not all of them were aware of my background, quite
Right.
frankly. Some were, some were.
Yeah.
Um, but for those that were, yes, I think you're absolutely right. I think there was a go get 'em sort of attitude for those folks. I think some of the other folks, they like the songs, they like my writing, they like my style, and wanted to participate. But I really have had tremendous talent. Mick Mahan on bass, he plays with Pat Benatar. Kara Britz and backup vocals, she sings with Blake Shelton. Lucille Moran on violin, she plays on The Voice, and the list goes on. I've had some
Right.
great talent to work with.
All right. So now that things have changed and looking much better, what are your plans once the record is released? Are you touring? Are you writing more songs? What is the deal?
All of the above.
Yeah.
As you can probably imagine, most musicians, their real passion is not just in writing, but in playing. And so we are trying to put together a tour. It will probably be a combination of solo, just myself, as well as full band. And
Right.
that's all in the works right now of being compiled. Hopefully it will be full band sort of East Coast tour in early summer, late spring. That's kind of the path right now. In the meantime, I am still writing.
Right.
I don't think I ever really stopped writing, actually, and that's the plan. I've also had the good fortune of having one of my songs recently picked up to be the theme song in a fairly major motion picture. So that's not on the album. I wrote it from the script, actually. So I will be doing some work on that in terms of the music video associated with the film.
Very good. Now, as we're speaking over in LA, it's January 6th, which has become one of those days, especially politically in the States. It's the 7th here in New Zealand. But and you have a song called Old Glory. So I'm just curious to hear about your thoughts and feelings about Old Glory and the political landscape you find yourself in these days.
Man sucks life from a paper bag. He's talking politics to a comic mag. Happy-go-lucky without compromise. He turns, says you're the slave, so surprised. Wisdom doesn't come from age, man. It comes from a little bit of sin. Man on the corner, you got a story. I want to hear what you got to say. So take another swing of your raw glory. Yesterday's dreams aren't far away. You own the script, it's not your property. Lights, camera, action, begin to play. So take another swing of your raw glory. Yesterday's dreams aren't far away.
Yeah, I don't really write too much political, and I don't necessarily use it as a theme per se.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to have it not creep in, though, now and then,
Right.
as you astutely point out. It's hard to not have that creep in and still have meaning in your music and relate to what's going on in daily life. And Old Glory was really based on my experience when I volunteered at a shelter in Los Angeles. And it's a place called Bread and Roses. It's in Venice, California. It's really a special place. It's a place where the clients come in and they're served. It's not like a bread or food line.
Right.
And it's purposely done so for dignity. And there was an instance where a mother came in with her two little girls. And if that wasn't just enough to pull your heartstrings just to watch them walk in,
Yeah.
I was pouring milk into the older girl's glass and I ran out. And as I went and turned to get more, she took all of her milk and poured it into her younger sister's glass. And when you think about it, that's everything that child had at the moment. So I really started to interact more with clients. There's a lot more depth in everyone's life, no matter what kind of situation they're in. And it was about a week later that I was speaking to literally a man on the corner, which is actually where the title of the album came from. And this person was somewhat inebriated, not all there. But he said something that stopped me in my tracks. He said, "Hey man, your world don't rhyme." And when he said it, it was a moment in time where he was absolutely right. Now, what kind of foresight he had or whatever, but it certainly made me stop. So I went to talk to him. One of the things that hit me was, despite his destitute situation, he was actually happy. Now, I know that he was inebriated, but I mean, you could tell he was actually happy. I don't know that he really wanted his situation, but he learned to cope. And I took some illumination from that, because at a point in time, my life was completely out of balance. And I realized that was the key, that I needed balance in my life. And so in talking with this gentleman, it again reinforced this overall feeling I had that everyone has something to offer, everyone, despite their situation. And the song "Old Glory" came about because he was drinking out of a paper bag and presumably had alcohol in it, and he called it "Old Glory." So from that encounter, I not only wrote the song "Old Glory," which was about the conversation about this illumination, but also used him as an example to have the title of the album.
Right. And is that you playing the guitar solo or one of your backers?
Most of the guitar work and the solo on that song, and most of the solos, is actually Holger Fath. He's an amazing guitarist out of Germany.
Okay.
Blessed to have him.
Very good, very good. Now, I was hoping we could also touch on the opening track, "My Confession." There's a video for it. I think it was released as a single last year. And of course, the first words that you hear you sing on the album are something like, "Are you prepared for when you stare into the abyss?" Which kind of, but then again, like I said, very upbeat track. So elaborate, please.
Are you prepared for when we stare into the abyss? We get into the fire and hold the desire that cleanses us from this. Lord, I've tried for us to survive. Feels like heaven's gate. You held firm for the long term. You are such a saint. Oh, my biggest sin is deep within. It's taking you down with me. It's my confession. It's my confession.
The abyss is the fact that they are in a really bad financial situation. They're living in an economic climate and a town which is being essentially destroyed by the economy. And so as it's sort of turning into a ghost town, they're losing their jobs. And so he is talking to his wife saying, "Hey, are you prepared for this? Because it's getting bad and really bad." And then as the pre-chorus says, his greatest sin, right, is not being able to be a provider. So that's his confession. His confession is he feels badly about not being able to provide for his loving and wonderful wife. Yet, the reason it's so upbeat is because the strength of her love and her fortitude is what keeps them together. And she essentially pulls them through this tough time.
Uh-huh. And do you take much active participation in the making of the videos that you do, the visualization of your songs?
Yes, all of it is from my vision, which emanates, of course, from the song and the lyric itself, as well as the general direction. However, obviously, the credit for the photography and the visual and the actual cinematography that goes to the producer and the directors. Mike Watts and Tom Flynn are amazing. They did the video for both Heal My Mind as well as My Confession. And so the credit for the result and the stunning images that they capture goes to them.
Right. And just overall, I'm feeling a very kind of 70s classic rock vibe about what you do. Is that accurate? What is your musical background and inspiration and motivation?
So I have a very eclectic taste because I was raised with music and my mother being a stage singer. I mean, I honestly, today, I listen from everything from classical to smooth jazz to reggae to country to rock. I'm all over the place. And so I sort of draw from all of that. There's a lot of country in my songs. My Kind of Cowgirl, obviously, You Gotta Earn Me's got a good big country vibe to it. And so that is a big piece of it. I would say that there's certainly the rock element, and in the ballads, it's pushes more toward, the classical pop sort of mix. So like a film, like going back to that analogy, taking you somewhere, you want to also go through a journey of, emotion or action or what have you. And so I feel like an album, you want to do the same thing. When you go to a concert, you do want to have some differentiation in what you're listening to. You want to see the ballad, but you also want to have the big stage, rock sort of performance. So you want to go through that diversity in the journey. And so I purposely make my album take us on this similar sort of journey. And I think all of my writing will always do that. So I'll always be sort of this cross-genre type of writer for that reason.
Okay. And with that in mind, the album taking us on a journey, it finishes, that journey ends with a song called A Moment Ago, which sounds very autobiographical. I assume it is, but you can tell me if I'm wrong, and maybe tell me a little bit about how it came together.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. It is. It is. It does talk about my early life and, where I go through more current times. Now, it takes us through the journey of an entire life cycle. And since I am still on this side of the turf, that part was obviously fictitious, but it was purposely written to go through a full life cycle, because a moment ago is what you feel like when you have a particular memory. And if you focus on it long enough, it seems like it was just yesterday. And if you figure 100-year lifespan of a person, that's 0.00002% of the planet. So that's 502%, right? On that side of the decimal point. So it is, our lives are short in retrospect. And so that's why I wanted to go through a full life cycle and present that there is that need to be fulfilling in your life, because it is going to feel like a moment ago.
Gotcha. So the album's out on the 17th. What do you got planned for the day? Anything special?
Hopefully we will be doing a few small solo shows thereafter, somewhere between the 17th and beginning of February or mid-February. And then I have to work on the music video for the theme score. And then hopefully once that's over, prepare to tour.
Cool. And when you do come to New Zealand later in the year, is it for work or pleasure? Or both?
That's going to be pleasure. It's a father-daughter trip.
Oh, there you go. That'll be fun. Yep.
We are Lord of the Rings fans, and I'm going to do some of those wonderful hikes.
Off to Hobbit-Charn.
Yes.
Very good. All righty. Well, thank you for spending time with me this morning, or afternoon in your case, and good luck with everything when the record comes out.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this episode of the 13th Floor's Music Talk series, please be sure to subscribe to the website or to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and wherever you find your podcasts. There's a whole lot more to discover.